We're live.
Yep.
We're live.
Yes, we
Okay.
are. So I'm going to share the link.
Yeah,
I'm going to share the link to both of you.
I just got the
So I'm going to share.
that we are live.
So you can share the links. You can share the link to your wonderful audience, and we can have audience interaction for the first time. So you can share to your numerous Twitter followers. Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is Polemics 3.
Where's the link?
I'm Telegram. Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. My name is T. Tosin. And with me, I'm the host for today. And with me, we have Abigail.
Hello, Tosin.
And we have Phil Drift.
Whoever is down
and
there.
we have Phil Drift, Ikenna.
Hey, hi
Say
everyone.
hi to the audience.
Yeah, hi everyone. Everyone here
So
and
today-
everyone out there.
Yeah. So today is the third episode of Polemics, and to talk about the economy and politics and the other boring stuff that and Abigail doesn't want to talk about. So I want to talk about brain drain, the value-added tax, and if we have time, I want to talk about some things that I saw. Some things I want to talk about what's going on the Twitter sphere with regards to the budget office, and we'll talk about the books we're reading, and then we'll end it all up. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share a document. I'm going to share my screen, and I want you to see what was front page of the Punch today.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, just wait for a minute.
A minute?
Well, not a minute, but I just want to share to the Polemics group. Okay.
A whole minute.
No.
Minute?
This is it's a economic minute.
Economic minute. Is there a difference?
Yes, an economic minute is 1 minute.
Understand.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see. You can see my screen yet. Share my screen.
Not yet.
Okay. Share. So can you see my screen?
Okay. Yes.
It's coming.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
And I can see every other thing.
Yep.
You're not
Okay.
showing.
So
you aren't showing the screen properly.
Okay.
Because I'm saying, this is what I want. This is what we.
Okay, now he is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see. You can see. Save pictures, and I don't know if you can see the picture.
Yeah.
So apparently, the doctors act more alarming, says the Nigerian Medical Association. 60 doctors dump Lagos hospitals every 6 months, National Medical Association. 700 doctors leave Nigeria annually, says the first vice president. And all my mates have left Nigeria, United States doctors. So, yeah. So that's the topic for today. The first topic for today is, why are the doctors leaving and who else is leaving?
Who else?
Oh Christ! Is that a question?
Yes, yeah.
Why are the doctors leaving?
Like really,
Well,
why?
the doctors the, the doctors are leaving because they they have found. I don't want. I wanted to use a doctor euphemism. I didn't want to say they have found greener pastures because that sounds more like what a farmer or a gardener would say. Perhaps they've found more more they found more viable options than remaining here in Nigeria. And I mean, everybody wants a better life. So if they found something better, why shouldn't they leave? Why should they stay?
I'd even say
Kenna,
the question you can ask is the doctors who are here, why are they still here?
that's a
That's
good
another
question.
question you can ask. That's another question you can ask. But yeah, they're leaving
Good
because
question.
they're leaving because the prospects are better outside the country, and there is a demand for doctors. There's a demand for doctors in the UK, in Canada, in the US, in Saudi Arabia, and some other countries that we're not aware of. What is funny is that it is at this moment that the NMA is actually uh, raising alarm because the barn door has already been opened a long time ago and the goats have already run out for greener pastures long before enemy is coming to shout like it's a new thing. It is not a new thing. This has been going on for, I think I would say, almost a decade. Nigerian doctors have been leaving. So yeah, greener pastures basically.
Wow. So the
Um,
question is,
and
who else is
and
leaving?
if I may
So
add, if, well,
yeah,
I
yeah,
would
Abby.
say everyone and anyone who can and anyone and everyone who has the opportunity to leave is leaving. Um, it's like abandoning ship. When you know that a ship is going to sink, everyone jumps off before the actual sinking takes place. And right now, Nigeria is like a sinking ship. So everyone who has the ability to wants to jump off the ship before it sinks. Um, I mean, even the captain of the ship would have jumped off if he had the opportunity. I mean, judging from the number of times that he's out of the country, he might as well be jumping ship. But I mean, anyone who has the opportunity to would do that because there is it seems like a hopeless situation. I say seems like because in the midst of all of this, some people still see hope. Some choose to remain with the ship till whatever, and they believe that there'll be a turnaround at some future time, and so they remain. But realistically, anyone who can will.
So
Well, to add,
in summary, what you're saying is that people are voting with their feet.
yeah, okay.
Abby?
So I
Yes,
okay,
they are.
Yeah, you can. So it can.
Yes, that's what
yeah,
I'm saying. They are voting, and Ikena wants to add something. So yeah,
okay. So I would say who is going? Who are the people leaving Nigeria? Who else is leaving Nigeria? Well, the simple answer would be people who can. And when you break that down, who can leave Nigeria, you end up it ends up being the best. That is the top professionals. Um, you hear stories about people in managerial roles in the banks upping and leaving to Canada. You hear about people who are bright and before you know it, they're coming to tell their bosses that they have left Canada. Um, I was somewhere where Patotomi was talking to people, and Patotomi basically said that there's a joke that goes around that the last person to leave Nigeria should not forget to switch off the lights. So
Person should switch off
uh,
the generator.
the generator and the light. Person shouldn't forget
No, the
to switch
gen,
off the light on
please.
his way out, to switch off the gen on his way out. So it's it's the best, and this is the big problem because um, if it was just okay, basically anybody, if we're having migration of people who you would say okay are not the most employable in Nigeria, you would say okay, we could manage. At least you still have the best around, but what you have are the best people, doctors, obviously, and in every profession the best. Because I mean, take Canada for example. Canada requires that you be of very have a very high and very wide skill set, which makes it more possible for you to emigrate to Canada. So it's that's what is happening, and this is where the danger is because those who are staying, a lot of people who are staying because not because they don't want to go, but because they can't go. They can't go, and it means that it's going to be difficult if we're going to this sinking ship. If we're going to stop the sinking, you need the best people really if we're going to move Nigeria forward. So it's going to be difficult.
So, what do you think the effects of
And
this
if
brain
I
drain
may
will
just
be
chip
over?
in,
Okay. No, no,
yeah,
Abby,
if I
please
may
chip
chip
in.
in something, um, I mean something that Ikena said about the brain drain being our best, actually leaving the shores of the country is very true, and the devastating effects that will be felt not in the immediate, but actually more long term. And then if you take away the fact that we are having the best of brains in this country leaving, you also add that the internal politicking that is preventing some of the best from even helping out where possible. I mean, we had the Sheung Onigide issue just this past couple of days. I think that is even a sort of brain drain, internal brain drain, which is a result of very harmful politicking. If the best that even remain cannot get in and get the work done, then we have a lot of trouble in our hands.
Yeah, I heard about the Shehu Nigbinde matter, and I think we'll discuss that later. So, what do you think are the effects of this migration of Nigerian professionals over the short and long term? Ikena?
Well,
All right, in the short term, let me just as
Okay, Abby.
yeah, go ahead
well,
again.
in the I think in the short term you're going to have a shortage of skill in important areas. For example, in the hospitals, because basically what you're going to be seeing in the hospitals are the frustrated. You might no, now I'm not generalizing, but basically what you'd expect would be the frustrated doctor who is basically who hasn't managed to move because of his lack of skill. So he's the one that is in the hospital to pour his frustration on you. That is short term. Long term means that you really companies, especially private companies, private hospitals. I've heard this from doctors or people, people who manage hospitals, private hospitals in Nigeria, that you can't really plan long term because you have a young doctor, for example, who comes in and you basically just know that this guy is just using you as a to mark time. He's basically on his way out. So you cannot plan long term. You cannot say, okay, we want our hospital to be like this in the next 10 years, and we are developing this set of doctors who are going to build the hospital. So long term, that's going to be a problem in many different areas. That lack of competent people, especially in management positions, who that glut is going to be difficult to fill. But I also feel there's a point, something that at least we can be optimistic, slightly optimistic about, in the sense that one thing that always tends that would happen is that if the Nigerian government gets it right at some point, if the Nigerian government begins to get it right policy wise, you have a lot of these people who have gone abroad start to come back to see if they can build something in Nigeria and will be better for it. Some of it was happening between, I think, 2010 and 2015. A lot of people who had already gone, especially in the times of the Abacha years, began to return and to see what they could do, even though a lot of them have started going back again since 2015. So it depends. It depends on what the how the decision the country makes. Really, it depends.
So in the short term, businesses can plan, hospitals cannot plan, and in the longer term, we have issues of maybe we can have some brain gain from this issue, right, Ikena?
We could.
On a scale of 1 to 10, do you think will happen?
Are you asking? Is it everyone? Do I answer? I would
Yeah,
say
you had.
I would say prospects. The prospects turning good, prospects turning bad. I would say 7 turning bad, three turning good.
Yeah. So I'll just give you a small anecdote. I'm a member of a WhatsApp group of medical students. When they were students, they all had plus 234 numbers. Right now, the plus 234 to plus to other ratios, to other number ratios is 80 to 20 in favor of plus in favor of other numbers. So about 80% or 4 out of 5 of them of the members of this group have left the country to practice medicine somewhere else. It's amazing stuff. So on to the next top on to the next topic.
It's really horrible.
So on a final note, Ikenna, Abigail, you're both professionals. When are you leaving?
Abigail,
Abigail,
Well, I've had a
are you
stint
leaving?
out of the country, and I do not think I've had this. I have had a stint outside the country, and I do not think that's the direction my life should be headed. And I'm back, so no, not for me.
personally, I have too many roots here, so cutting them might not be the best thing. As in, cutting them completely might not be the best thing. But who knows? Um, well, somebody has to keep the gen on, so that's what I'll say.
Exactly, exactly. We don't want to
Okay,
turn off the gen yet.
okay, okay. So on to the next topic. Last week the government made up a proposal or exposed the proposal to increase the value-added tax by 44% from 5% to 7.2%. The objective of this is to reduce the shortfall of the state, reduce the funding shortfall of the states. Um, Good or bad?
I'm not supposed to be laughing.
That's a very that's a very interesting question to see. Good or bad?
Yeah,
Well, once you hear of anything that has to do with increase in Nigeria, everything, the cost of everything rises. And so, your question inadvertently is an increased cost of living good or bad? And I think any right
Well,
thinking person will tell you that they do not want an increase in cost of living. Even though I have heard,
but
I
if
mean,
you
of, I'm not an economist, and we have to defer to economists who say that ordinarily, um, value added tax shouldn't affect all commodities. But this is Nigeria. All those rules do not apply to us in this country. Once you hear
I
that
think
the government has increased aid, every other thing goes up.
well,
Okay.
well, if you think about it, the one of the terms that came out of this conversation on VAT was the term roadside economist. Um,
The
so
economist.
saying you are not an
The
no.
economist.
Roadside economist. Apparently, it trended on Twitter for a while. So let me just look for tweets.
So we've had
Let me share my
we've had days
tweet.
we've had periods where people have attacked economists, Twitter economists. There was the economist period where the term was the economist, that's ERR, and this period was the roadside. This period is the roadside economist. So yeah, but
So, yeah. So this is the term, all uses of the term roadside economist. So Niger Flying Doctor says it means I will be resigning as a roadside economist and taking up my rightful position as Dr. Brown, MBBS, MX policy, stakeholders, please note. These people economists. It's like without the past Gary. I think this has to do with the Economic Advisory Council.
the economic advisory council, yeah.
Yet there are some Paris like yeah. So yeah,
Anyway,
Ayob, don't
for
listen to
me,
the roadside economics of political hacks. Goes ahead roadside economics and a political hack.
very rich. That is all I can say. Very
Nigeria
rich
followed the
from my
Chinese
job.
economy. Then Peter Obi let Nigeria BMC Chinkoman, he wants to enrich himself, roadside economist. Zainab Ahmed, we are walking to the economy as fast as China's BMC, our madam. So it's the term roadside economist. So Abigail, are you a roadside economist?
Retired.
Well, one thing which I do know is that whether whatever analogies are being made, it's affecting whatever is being done in the to the economy is affecting the common man. I sent out a tweet a couple of days, I think it was yesterday. I went to the local market for the first time in a while, and I realized how expensive everything has become. Um, I was told that the borders had been closed. I mean, the market women were telling me the borders had been closed. A kilo of chicken is now going for anything from 1,700 to 1,800 naira. A kilo of turkey, 2,000. Local rice at 270 naira for what they call a derika, and the foreign imported rice at 300 naira. Well, I don't think that's a bad thing. Some of the things that are happening are not essentially bad things, but if these things were happening with an increase in income for workers and others, then it would be a good thing. But we cannot remain at the same earning the same thing, and you get like double the price for things that you usually would buy at a cheaper price. I do not think it's fair on the people, especially when there is an other options. There is a large number of unbanked people in Nigeria. So not unbanked, untaxed people in Nigeria. And there are informal ways that you could use to tax these people, and they'll be willing to pay if they see what their the tax money is being used for. Locally here, in the area where I am staying, people get taxed for all sorts of things. The road is bad. The landlords in the area go around and tax people to to repair the roads. That is taxation. The government could do the same thing. Use this um, informal settings or informal setup to get more people to pay tax. If they know what the money is being used for, people will pay. But the the turn to overtaxing the already heavily taxed is what I just do not understand.
Well,
I
you might
think
say that the value added tax is targeted at, it's supposed to be, it's supposed to not cover the essentials of life. So food, rent, clothes and school fees. No, not clothes, books. So the expenditure, the really poor in the society should not in theory pay value added tax. That's one thing. However, if you do think about it, and this is from the other, this is from the opposite end. About five states pay about 90% of all VAT in the country. So it's a very disproportionate tax, which is just by the way. So Iken, are you about you were saying you're gonna say?
um, for me, I think the issue for me, what I with the problem I have is, well, tax might not be a bad thing sometimes. I mean, if you want to, if it's to invest in infrastructure and education, okay, tax, yes. The question is, why is the government looking for extra revenue? And like you said, this is to aid to cover the shortfall, especially in the states, the revenue shortfall in the states. Why do states have a revenue shortfall? Because a lot of states, their revenue is spent on salaries, recurrent expenditure. The same thing with the federal government. So the question is, or the issue is that, are you increasing value added tax? Are you putting a greater burden on Nigerians in order to maintain an over bloated civil service? Which is what I think they are doing. Because it's clear that the oil money that we thought was infinite isn't enough to cover running the government, because the government is so over bloated that it's so difficult to run the government with the salary, with the amount of money that comes. So you have to look for one way or the other. You have to take money from here, take money from there to cover the shortfall. Let me give an anecdote. Now I don't know whether I'll get into trouble for saying this,
Oh,
but
please do say it.
yeah. Now, and what I mean, I might get into trouble with my employers for saying this. So,
Oh, please say
Well, we'll
it.
raise a hashtag for you.
well,
We'll raise a
so
hashtag for you.
okay, so prepare my hashtag. So basically, um,
Hmm.
at some point in my university, I think last year or so, there was this drive to employ a lot of people. So a lot of people were employed. In my department, people were showing up almost every morning with appointment letters. There were stories about some kind of racket where you pay, I think, 1 million and you get an appointment. Now, UNN appointed thousands of people in a very short period of time. Now, salaries, the way salaries are paid in federal universities is that the money is sent in bulk to the university and the university disburses it. But the money that is sent to the universities are based on a budget. So what happened to UNN is that UNN employed so many people that the budget could not cover their salaries. You have many of these people who are employed in UNN last year who haven't been paid till today. They have not been paid at all till today. So what does UNN do? So basically, if you know somebody, basically they can say, okay, a professor is retiring, and a professor's salary is like maybe four new staff's salary. So they put four new people based on who you know into the payroll to replace a retiring professor, or many funny things. They take money from here to pay salaries, and that's the same idea that the government is doing. The government is just basically using, I think they are using this increased VAT as a short-term fix to fix the shortfall in the fact that the government cannot even take doesn't have enough money to take care of its basic responsibilities, and
So
that
so
is where okay.
I have two questions. The people that were employed, are they working?
That's it's a very difficult question to answer. Some are working, some have decided that look, I am basically just hanging around until they start paying me.
Then they work.
Then they work.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's a terrible. It's a crazy thing. It's a crazy thing.
So would it be fair to say that the government uses employment in the civil service as some sort of social welfare scheme?
Yes.
Hmm.
I mean, the reason why a lot of states can't pay salaries is because most times that's the key. If you wanted to help your people, let's say you became governor, or you became local government chairman, or you became senator, and you wanted to help your people, the best way to help your people is to put them in some federal job, either in the way they call it here, a lecturing job, or you put the person in some parastatal, whether federal or state parastatal, so that the person can begin to earn there.
Okay.
So rather than
You
give the person money, you just put the person in a job, and the person is drawing a salary.
where's the way to Canada? Where's the way to Canada embassy?
We need somebody to service the gen.
So Abigail, what do you have to say about this? I mean, have you been in a situation? Have you heard about this situation where people where where the civil service of your state or is over bloated and then they have to raise taxes because revenues don't match?
I think that's basically the situation that almost all state governments are facing. Um, it goes without saying that a lot of people who work in the civil service are just there because, I mean, if you visit any visits to um, the secretariat, local government, or wherever, if you even have youth corps members who are posted to the local governments, they don't need to show up. Most of the time, they don't need to show up to work. They just turn up on the day of their CDS and mark register because people are basically not getting any work done. They're just there, and some of them hold two jobs, three jobs. Um, I know someone who doesn't go to the personally know someone who was a ghost worker for many years. I mean, she only showed up to pick up salaries. And I wondered, how does this keep happening in a country where you say there are checks, there are no checks, there are no checks. People just, it's just how, there's this phrase that they use on Twitter, anyhowness on Fleek. People are just doing things the way they want. And because the civil service is one of those places where you just do not go there with a sledgehammer. People will
Yeah,
turn against you
yeah,
and you will lose out completely in government. So it's a no-go area. It's they're like sacred cows. So it just keeps getting. I mean, Oyo State, the governor of Oyo State came out the other day to say that between when the last governor handed over to him and when he took over, the salary of the civil servants increased by 1 billion.
Yeah.
You don't
So
make
that
things like this up.
the
How?
gov the governor
How does it happen?
the outgoing governor did final send forth for his people.
It is crazy. Or maybe some people took advantage. I have no idea. So they would have to begin to audit and check who are the ghost workers, who are those who are not supposed to be paid salaries, who are all of this. Where did 1 billion? We're not saying 1 million, we're not saying 10 million, we're not saying 100 million, we're saying 1 billion naira in salaries. And imagine what
Per
that
month
could
or
do
per
as
year?
far as development is concerned.
I know this might be a silly question, but is that 1 billion
I
naira
would I
per
would
month
have
or
to
per
I would
year?
have to I'm just going to uh, Google wage bill in Oyo State so
Mm.
that I do not give wrong information. Wage bill
I'm guessing it's probably a
increase
month.
in Oyo State. I
So,
believe it's a month, but I just don't want to say it's a month and then
Probably think it's a
there is no
month.
way it's going to be a year.
wow. So, anyways, so the question is there work to be done in the civil service?
I would say it depends. It depends on where.
Okay.
It depends on where. Um, at local government level, you hardly have work being done in many local governments because basically many local governments there's really nothing in you could say economic activity happening in a lot of local governments, especially in rural areas. So you don't really have a lot being done. There are places where, for example, if you're taking a place like Port Harcourt or Lagos or a major city, yes, you might need a lot of people to do a lot of things from waste management to general law and order. You might need a lot of people, but it's not the same for so you basically have this disparity where you might need more people in some places and you might need more people, less people in some places. I, I'm going back again to the university thing. In university, it depends. There are some departments where you have a huge load of students. For example, in medicine or pharmacy or engineering, you have a lot of students. And in some departments, like my department, you don't have that many people. So if you have too many staff, you basically have staff that don't do anything or don't have to do anything because there is nothing really for them to do. So
But there's research and there's teaching. Okay, maybe there's not much teaching, but there's research, and you probably need research assistants and rock analyzers and
well,
things
that's
like
if you
that.
have the equipment and they are working, but you don't. Another point about this is because people are saying rather than increasing VAT and looking for ways to squeeze money out of people who are not even making that much money, why don't you look at how you're going to reduce your your wage bill? And the government is not doing that. People are we're talking about the government has signed into law a new minimum wage.
Okay, that's
That
good
has
for
that
you.
has that hasn't started being paid. So this VAT is basically, I guess, probably this is the VAT is one of the ways the government is targeting the new minimum wage to
So
target the minimum wage.
God gives and
And,
government
and,
takes.
and don't forget that not all states And don't forget that not all states are paying the new minimum wage. Some states have come out to say we can't pay this because
Mhm.
they're not making enough money. And
And
I mean, it remains a big problem. Um, you
So my
asked
question,
before that do we need all these workers?
yes.
You asked
So my
before that do we need all these workers in the civil service? And my response is maybe not. In fact, to a large extent, not. There is a need to cut down the number of people working in the civil service. But the question people keep asking is, if you take them out, where would you send them? So whatever the government has to do has to have a human face.
another thing also is, how do you take them out? It's really amazing how secure a civil service job is. That's why a lot of people want it, because it is really difficult to lose your job in the civil service. In the university, for instance, it is very, very difficult, extremely difficult. The worst that can happen to you is that maybe because you're not meeting up, for example, as a lecturer, if you're not doing research, you're not going to be promoted. You're going to just stagnate. But to lose your job, it's difficult because there are so many. Well, I guess it's obviously it's so that you don't, to avoid discrimination and to avoid people being treated unfairly. But there are so many processes that have to go before somebody loses his job. So what the person has to have done has to be something really, really egregious, or maybe the person is absent from duty for a year or something. That is when the person can lose his job
A year.
or something. And even that is even still hard. What will happen is that your salary will be stopped. But to lose your job in the civil service is very, very difficult. You have to actually probably commit a crime and go to jail or something.
And still, you might not lose your job.
You might not lose your job. So what can happen is, it's not even a question of laying off, but it's a question of the government seeing that, look, over this particular period of time, we're going to manage the intake of people. That's a
But
new appointment.
in a
We're going to manage it.
in a but in the end
Now,
of the day,
the
you will
danger is that
have
you become
a
top heavy.
situation where you, yes, so you become very top heavy, and in a country who have very high youth unemployment, that might not be the best solution.
That's true. But
Anyways, anyway, our time is spent. Abigail, have you found out how much is being added to the Oyo salary every month? Let me
Yeah,
just
it's 1 billion. The
every
per
I
month,
saw
month.
this punch. They pay 5.2 billion per month for their wage. The monthly wage bill shot up to 5.2 billion. So it was 4.2 by March 10, but by the time they took over in May 29, it had shot up to 5.2 billion with an additional 1 billion.
okay.
That's what the punch says. If I'm to
It's
read directly, the Oyo State Governor, Mr. Sheyi Makinde, on Wednesday said the wage bill of workers in the state increased by 1 billion shortly after the governorship election on March 9. Um, the governor declared, he said, between March 10, when we were declared winner of the election, and May 29, when we eventually got into office, the wage bill of Oyo State increased by 1 billion, but we have been paying it. So, I mean, March 10 to May 29. Maybe he's talking about 3 months. I don't know, but this is just what is here. There is no other
It's still
additional
a lot of
information
money.
or
No
breakdown.
matter how no matter how you look at it, it's
Yep,
still a
even
lot of
if
money
it's
to be
even if
paying.
it's even if it's spread over 12, even if it's spread over 12 months, 1 billion in a year
added to your wage bill.
is outrageous.
It's not just like you spent an extra 1
Added
billion,
to
but
your wage
added
bill is
1 billion to your
outrageous.
wage bill.
Exactly. It's not like you spent
You
an
cannot
additional
even run
1
a private
billion
business like that.
repairing roads or building schools or something. You are using it to pay people. It's crazy.
Okay. Hey, and then on that note, we will move on to we'll talk briefly about the struggles of director of budget, Shehu Nigbinde, who probably holds a record that for long shortest political appointee in Norway. Can anyone fill me in on what happened to the gentleman from Budget?
I
Kena?
don't
Fill
know.
you in, like you've not summarized the story already.
I don't. I heard that he was appointed on Friday, and he resigned on Monday. So
I actually
how?
heard the
Well,
story. I actually heard
there's
the
nothing.
story. I actually heard the story after he had resigned. So I mean, the past week I haven't really been on social media like
Okay,
that. So
he was
I
that
come and
short.
I see a Shewoniginde gist, and then I see that he has resigned. Resigned from what? I now go through and see that he was appointed a few days before, and then he had resigned. Suddenly resigned. So I was like, okay, okay,
Atilo Atide.
happy.
Abby. So Abby,
Well, that's
you're the
just
one on active on
it
social
is what
media.
it's
What
what it
happened?
is.
No, I don't.
No.
I know. I guess.
Well,
I
it is
guess.
what it is. I mentioned this earlier that I mentioned
Yes.
this earlier that it's um it's an internal brain drain. Um, I keep going back to using Oyo State as an example. Something similar happened in Oyo State. I can't. Interestingly, another Sheung Fakorede was was appointed as commissioner for youth and sports in Oyo State, and people carried placards in protest because they said he was from the opposition, so to speak.
Mm, hmm.
And there was a lot of furore over the issue. But the governor had done his due diligence and before he appointed the young man, and so all he did was quell whatever um, had arisen out of it. But in the case of Shenwu Onigbide, I am very surprised. It appears to me that due diligence was not done, and I do not know whether this is a handicap on the part of the government or a handicap on the part of the person who was on the part of Sheung himself. But I do know that if due diligence was done, the entire episode probably would not have taken place. That's just my take.
So what you're trying to say is that he was asked to resign because of his previous opinions on the government.
I am not sure if he was asked to resign. I think he released a statement and he didn't say anything about being asked to resign. He said there were trust issues and that when there is no trust um, between an employer and an employee, the best thing is for them to go their separate ways. And he has decided to go. I am postulating that for his appointment to have been that short, due diligence was not done. Because the entire episode was one, people said he had been too critical. Some even called him an extremist or implied he was an extremist. And the point was, oh, you were overly critical of the government and you really do not deserve to get this position, as if getting positions are
Position
based
depends on
on
whether
what
you
you have
criticize
said
them.
or what you have not said. But sadly, this is the world we are living in. We are living in an outraged society, and people feeling entitled to certain things because of the color of their skin, the gender that they belong to, the political party they belong to, the ideology that they profess, and all of that. We have that entitlement, and so I'm not surprised that he probably was on the wrong side of the fence on in this instance, and so um, he was chopped, or he chopped himself.
There was a chopping.
Definitely.
I really,
Okay,
I really, I
so
really, I really don't have much to say about it. Really, I really don't have much to say. I just
I
guess
mean, I'm
probably
just I'm I
maybe I
said
don't.
I'm just amazed that someone would call Sean Nigbinde an extremist. I mean, an extremist for what? Making that you're saying.
I think she always comes across as having too strong opinions, too strong an opinion about the things that he supports. And he makes very, very strong statements. So I remember when he was making strong statements about how important Buhari is to making strong statements about how bad Buhari is. And that makes you look like, okay, you're contradicting yourself, especially contradicting yourself on a social media where nothing is forgotten. So I think it's basically because I know there's a lot of, in fact, I don't know. I,
Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. What are you gentlemen? What are you people? What are you guys reading or listening to? I'll go first. So I've started reading The Mastermind, a book called The Mastermind: Drugs, Empire, Murder, Betrayal. This was written by Evan Ratcliffe, and it has to do with a certain character called Paul LaRue, who was who moved from being a computer programmer who had the most unlikely ascent to being a global crime lord as you can never hear of. So he started off as a programmer and ended up he started as a programmer, ran an online pharmacy, ran the world's largest online pharmacy, and then diversified into drugs. And I'm halfway through the book, and I think it's actually a great. It reads like a crime thriller. It's like reality is stranger than fiction. So so that's what I'm reading.
okay.
Okay, so Ikena, what are you reading or listening to?
I am still reading. I'm still reading the Kavanagh book, even though we're talking about they have regurgitated the Kavanagh smears again. So I'm still reading the Kavanagh book, the one by Molly Hemingway, and I'm
Yeah,
still
and there's a new
that.
one coming out.
And there's a new one. It's a new one that is rehashing the smears again. You know, the author, one of the authors of the new one, was a classmate of Kavanaugh. Anyway, that aside,
Small
but
world.
that's a very small world. But that aside, another book that I am reading bit by bit. Well, I'm going to be reading bit by bit. I haven't started it yet, but I'm going to be reading it bit by bit. It's basically the name of the book is called Plate Tectonics, and it is not a textbook. Plate tectonics is basically like we can say the grand theory of the geosciences that basically explains the way the Earth works. And it was a theory that was developed in the 60s. Basically, it was put together in the 60s from different lines of evidence. So the book I'm reading is called Plate Tectonics, an insider's history of the modern theory of the Earth by Naomi Oreskes. Now, the book basically is essays by the players, the main scientists that basically use the evidence to put the whole theory together. And it's basically their recollections. So it's the story of the theory, how the theory came about, and how everything came together. So it's I've listened to some of them talk about how it happened, a lot of the serendipity and all that. But it's good to read a book about how it was for them, people like or how it was for them. Yeah, so that's a book that okay I'm talking about now. Yeah.
Okay, Abby.
I am still reading my book on weight loss. I am not done with it yet. I talked about the book last week. And the more I read it, the more fun I find it. Picture Perfect Weight Loss 30-day plan. That's the title of the book. Picture Perfect Weight Loss 30-day plan. But it's more than, like I mentioned last week, it's more than a 30-day plan. It's a lifetime plan. But there's this thing about if you do something consistently for 30 days, you might as well do it for a lifetime because it starts you on a path that just keeps going on until um, and you keep getting better and better at it. So that's what I'm still reading. I haven't. I'm not done with it yet.
Dr. Dr. Shapiro's weight loss plan.
Yes, yes, Dr. Shapiro's Picture Perfect Weight Loss Plan,
Yeah.
30-day plan. Yeah, that's what I'm still reading. And it's I mean it's just full of healthy options. I mean, a part of the book that I really really love is where it does comparisons of what's on your plate. I mean, you take like um, a burger and it's about 560 calories. That's just one burger, one beef burger. And if you're on a diet of about 1,500 calories or 2,000 calories a day, and one burger is giving you a deficit of 560 calories, that should tell you that you should do something about that burger. Either you take out the bread or you take out something from that burger in order to arrive at a point where you are eating something that is filling and still healthy. So proteins are the best for anybody who wants to lose weight and lose weight fast. It's better to eat a lot of proteins and less carbohydrates. Except there's a special need for you not to eat carbs at all. Carbs are good, but then you just need to know how much of everything you're taking. Know your portions, know what's in your plate, and eat healthy. That's basically it.
Well, on that note, we are coming to the end of the stream. Emma,
No. My mind was I was trying to think of some catchy intellectual phrase like be lovers of freedom or something, but I my mind failed me. It's 11 o'clock.
uh, Abigail.
Are you asking for famous last words?
Well, I'd take any at this at 11 o'clock. We'll take anything.
Oh, okay. Let me share something. Let me share something real quick if I can find it. Um, yes, I am going to say something about virtue signal in men. This is a topic very close to my heart. So I'm telling the ladies out there, whoever comes to watch this stream who's a lady, beware of virtue signaling men. If you're on Twitter and a virtue signaling man, a man who tweets men as scum or some other thing, anti men, comes into your DM, jump out. You're warned.
Why are you releasing
Stop.
Expo? You're
Oh,
releasing Expo.
I'm doing what?
okay. I can have a second. Go.
Class, that's classified information.
Hello, you can. You can.
You're releasing classified information.
Yeah, to our able
You can.
listeners. And
So you can. Yeah, yeah. You can. Any have a second at something witty and intelligent.
I like the emphasis on
Nah,
intelligent.
don't worry. Don't worry. My mind has failed
You're
me.
good, fam.
My mind has, the generator is off.
Please turn off the lights on your way out.
Okay. So on that note, um, good night. Hope you enjoyed the stream. And this week, if you can't be a good example, try not to be a case study. And on that note, good night. Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.